you allow me to record this. My grandma can't be here today. Typeset and lockset. Right, thank you. To begin, I must acknowledge that we are currently on the traditional lands of the Duwamish people, and that without that land, there would be no University of Washington, and none of us would be graduating today. I'd like to talk about three things today: uncertainty, variation, and hubris. Each of these topics is profoundly important to us, not only as statisticians embarking on the next chapter of our lives, but as human beings reflecting on the chapter we just completed. These three ideas are all essential components of our academic discipline, and each of them is an inescapable aspect of human experience. To explain why I think these three topics are critically relevant, I'd like to read a brief story from an ancient Chinese. Quote, "It can be difficult to foresee the twists and turns which compel misfortune to beget fortune, and vice versa. There once was a father skilled in divination who lived close to the frontier with his son. One of his horses accidentally strayed into the lands of Xianyu, so everyone consoled him. But, the father said, why should I hastily conclude that this is not fortunate? After several months, the horse came back from the land of Xianyu, accompanied by another fine horse, so everyone congratulated him. But, the father said, why should I hastily conclude that this cannot be unfortunate? His family had a wealth of fine horses, and his son loved riding them. One day, the son fell off the horse and broke his leg, so everyone consoled the father. But, the father said, why should I hastily conclude that this is not fortunate? 1 year later, Xianyu invaded the frontier, and all able-bodied men took up arms and went to war. Of the men from the frontier, 9 out of 10 perished. It was only because of the broken leg that the father and son were spared. Therefore, misfortune begets fortune, and fortune begets misfortune. This goes on without end, and its depths cannot be measured." End quote. The moral of the story, aside from the Confucian moral that father knows best, is that it can be hard to determine if something is going to be beneficial or harmful. The father understands that each situation is too uncertain to make hasty judgments without accounting for the variation that is always present in life. He understands that we need to be wary of our own hubris when making decisions. This is possibly the most valuable lesson that I internalize as an undergraduate in statistics. Too often, however, I find this principle is flouted. Uncertainty is underplayed or wholly ignored. Variation is compressed to the set of dimensions that we're already familiar with. Hubris goes unchecked. As we reflect on the past several years we spent at the university, we need to keep these lessons salient. I am a very young man, and despite the fact so little time has passed for me, I already catch myself conceptualizing the past as more certain, less variable, and with far too much confidence that I'm prepared for the future. Many of us have had the experience of reviewing some artifact from our past and having the unsettling realization that our internalized picture of the past has been altered by our own minds. Pixelated photographs and short diary entries can reveal so much more nuance than what we remember. Our memories are not as good at accounting for uncertainty as variation as what we document. And then that isn't even to acknowledge how small our personal memories are in comparison to the breadth of life. There's so many people who have pictured themselves in a moment exactly like the one we're in here experiencing right now. Our presence in this room right now is predicated on uncountably many things going right for each of us and our collective ability to avoid and overcome the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. It is not humanly possible to account for the depth and breadth of those events crucial to our own success. It's too much to hold in your head at one time. Often, in graduation speeches, speakers give a moment of silence to think of all the people who have made this journey possible for you. But I don't think anything like that could be considered in just one moment. I don't think anything that could be considered in just one moment could ever take into account the thousands of people who have made your life possible. This is an example of failing to account for uncertainty. This is an example of compressing variability. This is an example of hubris. Which isn't to say that we didn't work incredibly hard to be here. Getting a bachelor's degree in statistics, let alone a master's or PhD, is remarkably hard to achieve. Each of us has chosen to study and better understand something that, quote, goes on without end and cannot be measured. It should be an incredible point of pride in each of us that we've made the progress we've made in each field. We're positioned to understand the genetics of our children, the certainty of climate change, and the analysis of critical hypothesis-driven science. But studying something hard comes with demons. Each of us has been constantly surrounded by some of the most educated and gifted people in the world. As a point of illustration, according to the UN, 750 million people cannot read. That's about 1 in 10 human beings on Earth. We don't need the binomial distribution to know that the apparent rarity of illiteracy in each of our lives is not a consequence of random chance. We do not exist in a representative sample of the human experience. That biased sample means our expectations for ourselves are incredibly high. Who among us has not had moments of self-doubt? Who among us has not had moments of cruelty towards ourselves for not immediately understanding something? Who among us has not had moments where we called into question our intelligence? Sorry. Our intelligence and work ethic as students and researchers. Who among us has looked out at our incredibly bright and successful colleagues and not wondered how we measure up? You do measure up. You are intelligent. You are hard work. Not because some university is granting you a credential. It's not because you study something that other people find intimidating. It's because you did your best. We're only ever doing our best. Forgetting that is a transgression to the light and the potential that each of us have within us. Each of us is in an incredible position to make a positive impact in the world. Uncertainty is ubiquitous. Variation is ubiquitous. But we cannot allow our hubris to let us believe that because we possess skills and knowledge that other people don't have, that we are automatically better equipped to handle problems that have blocked domain experts and stakeholders. We tend to distinguish statistics from the humanities, but we cannot divorce humanity from our work. We value the mathematical objectivity of statistics, but you cannot be objective without listening to where people are coming from. I'd like to close with a thought. Each of us is graduating today is familiar with the curse of dimensionality. As the number of dimensions one considers grows, the sparsity of your data relative to the number you collected, and the volume of the space you need to consider, makes building a model that generalizes well challenging. Well, life is an incredibly high-dimensional space. If you think of your brain as a model, you will never have enough training data to generalize to the endless variety of circumstances you can encounter. But you can focus on covering as much of the space as you can. Thank you. Godspeed.